The belief in aging biology is completely changing the game of medical treatment in a way we did not anticipate this 5 years ago.
Hello and welcome to Pulse Amplify, where we sit down with the leaders and changemakers shaping the future of health. Proudly brought to you by Pulse IT News. I'm your host, Louise Shaper.
And I'm your other host, George Margellis.
Now, regular listeners to Pulse know that George and I, we love to explore where healthcare is headed, driven by innovations in technology and science, enabled by new business models that give power to citizens and support clinicians to do what they love. Well, today's guests could not be better aligned. They are flipping the script of healthcare, not at the margins, but at a global scale. Our guests today are from Hevolution Foundation, a first of its kind global non-profit based in Riyadh that became the world's largest philanthropic funder of Healthspan science. In just 3 years, Hevolution has allocated US dollars 400 million in grants and early stage investments to research that targets the biology of aging to extend our healthspan. Dr Mehmood Khan, CEO of Hevolution Foundation, is an endocrinologist by training. He's a former global R&D leader at PepsiCo and Takeda, and now channels his mix of clinical, scientific and commercial experience into extending healthy human lifespan at scale. Her Royal Highness, Princess Dr Haya Bint Khaled bin Bandar Al Saud, is Senior Vice President of Research at Hevolution. She's a genomic scientist with a PhD from Imperial College London who has led major national genomics and screening programs in Saudi Arabia and now oversees Hevolution's global healthspan research portfolio. Now, Hevolution has just released the second edition of the Global Healthspan Report, covering 23 countries and providing the most comprehensive look at where the field is headed. We're going to look at what role technology, data and new funding models might play in our health future. So let's dive in. Dr Mehmood Khan, Her Royal Highness Princess Dr Haya Al Saud, it is great to have you in the studio. Welcome to Pulse Amplify.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
It's good to be here and nice to meet you all.
Very exciting to have you on board.
Now, Dr. Khan, you have been at the helm of Hevolution since its founding only 5 years ago. Your mission, it's huge, no less than being a catalyst for changing the trajectory of our lives. So what attracted you to this role and how do you describe what Hevolution does and what you're aiming to achieve?
Our vision and mission is to, as you say, extend healthy human life for the benefit of all. There's three components to this. Number one, not longevity. We're talking about keeping people healthy as long as possible, which really amounts to keeping people independent, physically, mentally, and ultimately, as we'll see, financially. The second is for the benefit of all. We really are focused on solutions that can be democratized. We know there's 1 billion people on the planet that are over the age of 60 today. 2050, it's going to double, 2 billion. Evolution was the vision of our board and our chairman, His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman, to take on an initiative that would be a benefit in the region, but also benefit humanity across the world. In my mind, the only way to do this could have been through a foundation. It was a nonprofit where the impact could be scaled, but the risk appetite and time horizon was such that private enterprises typically would not take on. And governments often don't have the focus that is global, nor do governments have the mandate to cross borders. And so this is where a global foundation came in. And that probably explains why I took it on. Yeah. I've been a clinician scientist, been a researcher, I've been 20 years as a corporate executive. But what a wonderful, unique, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to help build and lead a team that's focused on a global challenge. It's a dream. And I had the fortune of being the founding CEO. But I like to tease Princess Haya because she was the project lead for this before I came on. So I always remind her she probably hired me.
Yeah, for both of you, I imagine it's not something you could walk away from or say no to. Such an amazing opportunity and to be there at the beginning.
As we've shifted the discussion from longevity to health span over the last decade or so, we've seen some major changes and we've seen changes in the way we think about healthcare. But in your report, you talk about it not only as a universal health initiative, but also a positive economic initiative as well. For Saudi Arabia, which is still a relatively young population compared to some other countries around the world, why did you decide to back this mission of extending healthy human lifespan at such scale and not just within your region, but at a global level?
Hevolution is a global organization. This is the beauty of Hevolution, is we're serving the kingdom and the globe. KSA. Vision 2030 is a vision that the input or what needs to be done to lead to diversifying of our economy embeds quality of life and how to bring or how to build strong communities. Dr. Mehmood and I and the whole organization takes pride in being part of that responsibility. And just to give a bit of insight why this is so important in the kingdom, the percentage of non-communicable diseases is extremely high, and it's around 73% of all deaths in the kingdom. At the same time, there is a decrease in birth rates. 5% of the population is 65 years and above. However, by 2050, it might actually triple. There's a huge demographic shift in the kingdom. So we need to proactively work on addressing these issues today. And it's not only a Saudi issue, it's a global issue today. And we hope through our efforts in Hevolution and collaboration with our partners across the globe is that we raise this and we put it at the forefront of the global agenda.
Build on this. The Gulf region, and Saudi being the largest population in the Gulf, is in a very unique position. Currently in Saudi Arabia, over half the population is under 30. And so that makes it much more like the global South than it does Western, Northwestern, European, Europe countries. However, the birth rate in the kingdom and in the region has fallen from historically what used to be about 6 children per couple, is down to around 2.2. And if you recall, the replacement rate is 2.17. So the population is changing just like the rest of the world. Birth rates are falling, the population is aging, with one distinction. The kingdom is yet to age in place, whereas in other countries such as Japan, where 30% of the population is over 60, that population is already aged. So the kingdom has a unique opportunity not only to understand and hopefully mitigate the biological challenges at a population level and implement new infrastructure, new systems, whereas developed countries don't have that opportunity. They can't go back and do this.
Yeah.
That's a unique opportunity I think only a country like Saudi Arabia could do, which can contribute to the world's understanding of how do you implement things at a population level and measure the outcome.
Absolutely. And on the science side of things, you've got things like GLP-1 agonists, xenotherapeutics, CRISPR, of course, so there'll be programming and others. And my understanding from your report is that 72% of scientists believe current research will yield clinically relevant therapies. So out of the long list, do you have a short list of what you're most excited about?
Very important question. There's a lot of scientific advancements in the field today. And these scientific advancements specifically work on targeting the underlying mechanism of aging, the molecular pathways or metabolic pathways that affect aging today. We cannot say the breakthroughs are really in isolation. It's a convergence of different sciences and previous outcomes that have been repurposed today to target the molecular pathways of aging. One of the examples is GLP-1 agonists. They have been developed to help individuals to maintain their insulin levels, and it is targeted for diabetes. However, GLP-1 agonists are causing individuals to also lose weight. But what's so interesting about this is what was realized in these trials is that a lot of the biomarkers of aging have also been improved throughout this process. So one, how do we understand the biology of aging? Two, how are we able to develop studies that can help us translate these scientific outcomes? And three, how do we develop ecosystems today that can enable developing these interventions? Because it's not only the scientists, it's the scientists, the clinicians, the healthcare systems.
Yeah. And government policy, I guess. So you need all these players in the community to come together.
Exactly. It's an ecosystem that you need to develop in order to advance the field. Now, there are challenges, and a lot of the challenges is not in basic science. It's more of being able to translate the science into human applications. This is what a lot of the work that we do in Hevolution and the work that the scientists needs to do across the globe.
So what we've seen over the last decade is universities are starting up their own aging research groups and venture capital and big tech get involved. But you seem to have this unique blend where you've brought philanthropists, big tech, venture capital, clinicians, basic research scientists all together. Each of these people often have their own reason for getting engaged. What do you see as the key driver for them? Is it the fact that the economic dividend's there? Is it scientific excitement? Or is there something greater than that's drawing all these people together?
Great time in history to raise this question, George. And I think, let's step back. The field of aging biology is at least 100 years old. If you look at the first work in nematodes and other simple organism models, it's about 100 years. And then about 50 years ago, the field really accelerated because our understanding of molecular biology and genetics started to take off. And we got a clearer framework about 15 years ago on the hallmarks of aging. And I think it did two things. One was crystallize what the verticals in the field are, but the other is it allowed companies and science to start to set up projects around these initiatives. And where does that bring in investors? Investors need a finite point where they can look at and say, where do we invest in? Show me the path to market. What is different now is that we have the progress of this science actually entering human trials. And once you start to enter human trials, there's an aha moment saying, this is something that just happens in a mouse. But there's enough safety data, enough proof of concept that regulatory agencies are willing to give you the approval to dose humans. While you don't have a therapeutic, remember, purely on statistics, you've just increased the odds of success by at least one log factor, at least 10-fold, if not 100-fold. If you're an investor, that's a de-risking. So that attracts investors. And it's attracting not only venture capital, but large pharma. You need both at the table. You need the whole value chain. That's one point. The second is our ability to quantify this biology at a molecular level. And that huge amount of data has become more amenable to handling. Computational power, compute power has become cheaper and much more widely available. And so the field of computational biology has really blossomed. And third is economic. At the macro level, politicians are acutely aware of the fact that aging, demographic change, and the burden of disease, morbidity that comes with it is not only an issue for departments of health or ministries of health, it's an issue for ministries of finance, it's an issue for ministries of labor, ministries of industry. Everybody is, in one way or another, across central government being impacted. Pensions, retirement, workforce availability. I mean, parts of Europe are running out of workers.
Yeah.
Remember, there was a time there weren't enough jobs. But we're talking about societies where there aren't enough workers. Yeah. So we're seeing this significant demand, and all of this is converging because that means government mobilizes, they start to offer incentives, and industry thrives in that environment where there's a pull as well. And the regulatory framework is being questioned. So all of this collectively, it's not a single factor catalyst. The entire ecosystem right now is at that point, and that's getting the attention.
I think one of the exciting things is that we're now starting to understand the complexity of the problem ahead of us. In the past, people always thought they had a single shot solution to these things. But as you pointed out, this is an ecosystem of challenges. Kudos for the great work you guys are doing there.
This field started with a lot of early adopters saying, I want to find the elixir, right? I want to find how people live longer and we're going to live forever and the rest of it. That's not what motivates me. And that's not what motivates most people I talk to. What I find commercially fascinating, we're now seeing the proof points. So technology for aging may well come to market for disease treatments that we never actually expected to be in the aging realm. Let me give you an example. Hepatitis B is an infectious disease. And unlike hepatitis C, there's no cure. 10% of people, if approximately, that get infected with the hepatitis B virus become chronic carriers, which results in cirrhosis, hepatitis, cirrhosis, and ultimately loss of the liver, transplantation, or death. About 2 billion humans have been infected. That's about 1 in 4. And 350 million carry the virus chronically, who are the ones who are at risk. It's problems. No cure available. scientists recognized that the virus was actually causing or was associated with accelerated aging in the host infected cell. So they asked a very interesting question. Is it that they became chronic carriers because their host cell was aged? Or was the virus causing the host cell to become aged? So they started to decipher this question and did a series of animal studies with the goal being to rejuvenate the host cell, to make it younger, and see what happened to its chronic carrier of the virus. And guess what eliminated the virus? Just bear with me, because this has profound implications. They then studied that from rodents to larger mammals to non-human primates. And in each case, when rejuvenating the infected animal's liver, the chronic carrying of the virus got eliminated.
Michael?
We invested behind that company. And as I speak to you today, the first human trials are about to start on using rejuvenation approach to treat hepatitis B chronic carrier. Just think of what I just said. It is basically by reversing the aging process in a targeted tissue that you treat an incurable disease, an infectious disease. So instead of finding another virus poison, you're actually enhancing the immune capability of the host to shed the virus. Think of a number of other chronic virus diseases which today remain incurable, right? It's an example of where I'm going, where that is very investable. The market is massive. But if successful, it will not only open the door to treat viruses, but it also opens the door to think about how aging affects other chronic diseases and what the path to market is. So we're already seeing this. We are the minority investor in that company. It is now attracting capital. So I want to give you a specific example of how the belief in aging biology is completely changing the game of medical treatment in a way we did not anticipate this 5 years ago.
That's a great example, that idea that by solving aging, we also have the knock-on effects is we can solve infectious diseases, and who knows what else comes along after that.
Thank you. That is a great story. Well, time for a quick break. And when we return, the team from Hevolution will be talking to us about what clinicians need to know about this space and what do we need to do to educate and upskill. We'll also be talking about the role for governments and policymakers. And for all of you digital health innovators, where are the opportunities lying for you? Back soon.
So one of the big challenges we're seeing around the world is that many clinicians are involved in delivering care to older people, but most of them don't understand health span longevity. When I went through medical school, we were trained that aging is a wear and tear phenomenon and there's no cure for it. We now know it's actually a much more active biological process. What sort of education do we need for our clinicians? And do we need a new subspecialty of health span clinicians to take this forward into the world?
The survey in the report indicates that 2/3 of healthcare professionals get monthly health span questions from patients.
It's a huge number, 2/3.
Of course, but the issue that clinicians are having today is twofold. The first is they're trained to be reactive. The person has a disease, now how can I treat the disease? There's a lot that needs to happen in terms of changing that mindset to more of a proactive approach. How do I prevent disease? And this includes a lot of elements. How do I understand the biology of aging? How do I understand the hallmarks of aging? Aging science is a reality today. So clinicians have to understand it deeply. The second point is, how do scientists contribute towards developing evidence-based clinical practice? Meaning clinicians helping researchers in validating biomarkers of aging and taking part into the research. However, for it to move to consumers, it will require more longitudinal studies to develop data that can be validated in clinical practice. And now, to do so, there has to be ecosystem development where we integrate longitudinal care models with early detection and embed it in the routine practice of a clinician. So basically, these are the main elements that I believe should be embedded in a clinician's mindset, and the system should support it. And I think we're moving towards that today. The amount of projects that we're working in clinical practice is very promising. A lot of local and international initiatives that focus on clinics and human intervention are underway. And I truly believe that soon enough, really soon, we're going to have clinical protocols that could be called Healthspan protocols that are applied in healthcare systems.
And policymakers. So we have a lot of senior government policy people who we know listen to the podcast because they tell us that they do and ask us questions about topics we've covered. So for those people who are in senior government roles around the world, what are one or two policy moves that you would urge them to prioritise to unlock what your report calls the Healthspan economic dividend? What do governments need to do?
I was speaking a few months ago in the European Union, and we had very senior cabinet members, health, and etc. And I made the comment, the person who should have been at the meeting should have been the Minister of Finance.
Yep.
And I say this because ultimately, if it stays within just health policy, it's likely going to be perceived as a cost center. It's only the finance and economics and labor industry ministers start to see this as a challenge that can become an opportunity, a challenge that can become a competitive advantage, that can change. And so what are those sorts of policies? Well, first of all, we look at retirement today based on a model that was developed in Germany almost a century ago. That's when 1% of the population lived to be 65. Today, 40%, fortunately, can expect that. But the model hasn't changed. The policy framework for retirement, for pensions, for working, our educational system policies. So there are several that could have an immediate short-term unlock, but it would mean rethinking our educational infrastructure, rethinking our policies around what credentialing and training is, which employers are incentivized to release their mid-career individuals to bring them back in as retrained. We don't do that. But we're now in a world where it could be 50-year careers. Just for the record, I'm 68, and people are asking me when he's supposed to retire. I'm wondering.
Yes. What's your skin protocol as well? That's what I want to know.
Most reality, the notion of why haven't you retired as a party question is almost insulting. Am I really looking that tired? So we have to question all of this. This notion that we're taking up jobs from young people is absolutely nothing further from the truth. The reality is how many positions remain vacant because you don't have the right trained people.
What Dr. Mehmood mentioned is very important. A lot of different players in the ecosystem have to believe in and they have to do their role to develop that policy. One example is we developed a report on the Healthspan roadmap in the Kingdom and the GCC, where we were able to bring in different stakeholders and sectors to sit around one table and co-develop recommendations that hopefully throughout time will develop into policies. Multiple players will contribute in developing this policy. I think we as Hevolution, we're playing a very big role in bringing people together and making sure that each stakeholder does what they need to do in order to develop a policy that can impact the general population and have a wide benefit across the Kingdom and the globe.
Yeah. And are you seeing this around the globe? Because governments, they've generally adopted a approach to health and medicine that is really quite outdated and it hasn't kept up. And our economic policies have also not kept up. Are you seeing certain countries actually look at changing the policy conditions, whether that's around medicine and health or education or finance, economic models?
The Kingdom is one of the leading countries in believing in upgrading the healthcare system to be more preventative and not only reactive. Now, it will take time to adopt this whole system because the issue is how do you get all stakeholders aligned and how do you get all stakeholders to defragment the ecosystem. We are lucky because leadership in Hevolution, His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who's also leading Vision 2030, believes in this. So now it's our duty to deliver and hopefully support the ecosystem to adopt these new upgraded healthcare models.
A lot of people who listen to our podcast are involved in digital health. Do you see any specific areas where digital health is going to make a big difference here? We've heard of the rise of AI and all those sort of things and electronic medical records, but are there any new innovations in digital health you think are going to tip us over to that nirvana of a Healthspan-focused healthcare system?
If I was to look at the value chain of technology arriving to make a difference in somebody's life, we've seen a lot of progress on the input to this funnel because of computational power, AI, things we talked about, protein structure, target identification, all of that really accelerating. We've seen very little progress on how we manage clinical research. So, for example, if you actually take a look at the 7 to 10 years it takes for a drug from discovery to make it to market, it's about a decade. Half of that is spent analyzing data, interpreting, making decisions on the next step. Just think about what I just said. Half. So if you wanted to just eliminate data assimilation, integration, interpretation, and decision-making using digital tools, you could speed up by 5 years. Economic return for a drug that sells at $1 billion a year, so it's patent expired, that's a $5 billion per drug ROI on average, okay? Massive ROI. Now, another big bucket is once the drug is in the market, we have almost no digital capability of actually tracking its utilization, getting feedback, and looking at behavior modification. The 4 proven interventions to improve health span: smoking cessation, adequate sleep, and therefore stress, calorie restriction, eliminating excess calories, and physical inactivity. All of which, by the way, lend themselves to digital monitoring and feedback loops.
Very much so.
Which we know work. So I think there is so much that we know how to do already. We don't have the incentives and the policy framework to actually implement these interventions, on top of which can be layered these new technologies. We talked earlier about clinicians. Healthy aging is part of the discussion every patient is going to have now. The question is, let's not forget what we already know is proven. And then how do we figure out, because if you find this new therapeutic and you continue to smoke, there is little evidence that's going to cancel it out. So I just want to anchor us to what are the technologies that will allow us to implement using digital that is very critical in the real world. And that's government and policy frameworks and public health systems that actually implement. That's going to require all of society approach, but we have the technology to do it.
For me, it's being able to standardize the field and being able to scale a lot of what we're working on. Now, agreeing in certain health span metrics, meaning validated biomarkers and so on. Also, our ability to support developing more translational pathways all the way from discovery and clinical adoption. And I think one of the main issues is our ability to share data infrastructure, meaning developing large-scale data that can help us interpret a lot of what we are observing today. Also being able to share this data and being able to ensure that the safety of this data and that ethical protocols are being developed. I truly believe that standardizing all of this is key, and I think that we are going to be able to do this very soon.
So Dr. Haya, Dr. Khan, thank you so much for all the work you're doing at Hevolution and also for this fantastic Global Healthspan report. We really recommend it to all of our listeners. We will put a link to the report in the show notes and to your website. You're both incredibly busy people. I believe one of you is flying overseas tomorrow and you fitted us in. So thank you so much for spending time with us here in the Pulse Pod studio. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. We're delighted you're showing interest in our work. And we would like to think that you're part of our team because we have a global mandate and the work you do is important for us to help get this message out. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a great discussion and I look forward to further opportunities discussing. This is a fascinating area. And if next time you get to Australia, please let us know.
We'll do next time.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Pulse, brought to you by Pulse IT News. Pulse is produced by Louise Shaper, me, with audio engineering by Ivan Jurek of Octopod Productions. Big thanks to Emily Mara, co-founder and publisher of Pulse IT News, for all of her support. And of course, big thanks to all of you, everybody, all the Pulse Poddies for listening. We love you. Please make sure you subscribe, follow, rate us wherever you get your podcasts, tell a friend. And don't forget, you can visit pulseit.news to sign up for the e-newsletter and explore Pulse IT's massive digital archive. Please send any feedback or topic suggestions to us on email at pulsepod@pulseit.news. George and I always love to hear from you.